GMs often meet with college coaches. Does that mean that Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke actually met and had a discussion about Aidan Hutchinson? We'll talk about that and a few more things today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, good people? It's Tony Wiggins here with Locked On Jaguars. Thanking you for joining us on your daily Locked On Jaguars podcast here because it's your team every day. And we appreciate you also making us your first listen of the day and reminding you that we are free on all platforms. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on the YouTube page as well. Boom, got all of that out of the way, right? That's the good stuff, man, because we like to show our appreciation for you guys. We'll let you know what I'm going to talk about today. We ain't going to bury it. Sometimes we forget when we're just sitting here debating every day who the team's going to pick, why they're going to pick them, who they're going to need. We forget some key things. We forget some key things about the process, and we also forget some key things about the big picture. And I'm going to try to remind you guys of those things today. One of the things I'm going to go over is there's an alleged rift that has gone on for years. And I say alleged because I don't know whether or not grown men have resolved some conflict or not. But people have often said that Trent Baalke and Jim Harbaugh don't like each other, right? Well, it'd be real odd if the GM of the team with the number one pick was to pick a number one player from a school coached by a guy he doesn't like and he never talked to him. So we'll go over that to see if that could be any reason or something to think about in terms of looking towards what's going to happen on the opening night of the draft. We'll also talk about the fact that, this year-over-year team building thing, more people are paying attention to it now, I think, because we're saying that no, there isn't a true number one pick overall, which yesterday I balk at because no pun intended when I say balk, but if you got a group of players that's there, somebody's the best. So somebody's worthy of number one relative to the guys that you're taking. I do understand the year-over-year deal, though, because maybe next year there'll be 7 or 8 guys who will be ranked higher than the guys that are currently being picked. It doesn't affect one way or another how you pick as long as you already have a quarterback. So you don't have to worry about that as Jaguar fans. But it is something that teams look at, and they look at it because they wonder where they are in their development. Like there are certain players that teams say, well, you shouldn't draft him because of where you are. I keep hearing that a lot about the Atlanta Falcons, that because of where they are as a franchise, that they need to draft a certain way. Even though I'm a proponent of just getting the best player available and letting it figure itself out later. And there are some people now that don't subscribe to that type of thinking that are making comments. So my question about that is, where are the Jaguars year to year? Are they in their first year of the rebuild because they have a new coach? Are they second year because it's the second year that Trent Baalke is actually the GM? Are they in their third year because they drafted so many rookies? Dave Caldwell's last year? Or is it the fact that so many of those guys are gone and irrelevant to the plan of this team that, no, they're probably in year 2, but then Urban screwed that up last year, so maybe they're in year 1. We don't know where we are as a franchise, and that leads me to what I'm going to talk about in segment 3, and that is no matter how talented these guys are, no matter how good of a player they are, it's often been said that the type of program you bring them into and whatever kind of player development you have structured for those players will eventually determine how good their careers go. And actually, that's the other thing. The key thing is this is about getting the guys that are going to have the best career, not about the guys that win on draft night, not about the guys that folks go sell tickets. I'm hearing a lot of sell tickets with Hutchinson in Detroit. And I asked the people around here, do you guys clamor for a non-quarterback from the University of Florida or Florida State to sell tickets for the Jaguars? Do you hear the people in Tampa wanting someone who played football in the state of Florida? Do the Miami Dolphins fans go crazy for a guy who played at the University of Miami? No, they don't. Do the Atlanta Falcons fans sit there and beg for people to take somebody from the University of Georgia? Not really. So I wonder why everyone all of a sudden thinks that that's the way it is with Detroit and Aidan Hutchinson. So That's obviously something that we'll get into, talking about team development and player development and how these guys are going to end up having a career. But it's interesting to me, if we go back to the opening thing that I discussed, the interesting thing is do we really believe that Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke did not have a discussion about Aidan Hutchinson? I would think these guys are both old enough to be somebody's grandfather. I would think that conflict resolution and the importance of the situation would mean that they probably did have some sort of conversation, or maybe they just went around that entire thing and let the fraternity of coaches, maybe Doug Peterson, had those discussions with Jim Harbaugh. But one, you would want to use Jim Harbaugh's opinion for multiple reasons. One of them being that he was his college coach. Two is that he was a very successful NFL coach and he understands what is important at this next level. And three, because it's not about him, it's more about Aidan Hutchinson. And you do want the opinion of what a coach actually thinks about a player. So I would assume that at some point, either they had a conversation, um, somebody had a conversation on the behalf of the Jaguars, or I just wonder how it went. I really, really wondered how it went. Now, the petty wig in me, the petty part of me, and this is the petty part of me, and there's a little bit of me that is, I can be petty Pendergrass, okay? Um, with all of this talk about maybe taking somebody else, you don't think Trent would do that, do you? You don't think Trent would not take Aidan Hutchinson because he's a Harbaugh kid, would you? Is Trent like that? Do you think Trent is petty like that? I wonder. I wonder if guys hold those grudges, because the crux of this isn't about necessarily them trying to get one over on the other person. It's just that central to their disagreement in San Francisco was, who do you buy into and what kids do you select to build a team and who's going to be in charge and make the decisions. So central to their disagreement is that maybe they don't see eye to eye on players and their value. Now, if that's the case, then you have to seriously ask yourself, would they still have a difference of opinion based on the value or the trajectory of a guy who you want to take number one overall? It's not unreasonable now. It's not a petty situation. If their central disagreement was, and I'm assuming that it was, somebody thought that they were better equipped to lead the team from either a coaching standpoint or a scouting standpoint, and if they had differences about personnel and players and who to draft, do you think they'd honestly, that it's out of the question that they don't see eye to eye about the top player in the draft this year, who happens to be a kid that played for Jim Harbaugh? I don't know. I hope the maturity wins in the situation and that nothing like that actually affects the draft pick, because contrary to everyone's belief, when I say I don't think Hutchinson is the best player in the draft, I'm just being honest. It's just my opinion. But when I tell you, if the Jaguars pick him, I'm going to root for him because I want to root for you guys. I want to root for him too because I don't have nothing against him. But I want to root for the team. I want things to go right for this organization in this city. So uh, giving my honest opinion about a player doesn't mean that I'm a hater. So every time somebody uses the word hater, you know what? You make yourself look really, really bad. So uh, sometimes you got to watch, and you try to dig a hole for somebody, you probably digging one for yourself, because uh, anybody that listens to me understands that I'm basically giving you my honest opinion. And then when I tell you, in our mock draft that we did, in our ultimate mock draft, I picked Travon Walker, and I specifically said I'm doing this because this is what I think they're going to do, and they meaning Trent. So it's obvious that if you're disagreeing with me about that, you're disagreeing with what I think Trent Baalke is going to do. And if you're hoping that Trent Baalke does what you want him to do, then that means that you and Trent Baalke, the fans of Trent Baalke, have made up and kissed and made up that you think a guy that you couldn't stand is all of a sudden going to be on your side, and y'all going to be thinking like-minded. Just remember, I'm not your enemy, man. I'm just a dude that's been standing here neutral the entire time. And most of the time we were on the same side as fans and as far as Locked On Jaguars, that we didn't want Trent Baalke to hang around. But now that he is, these are the questions that we have to ask. Speaking of him, it's a lot about him today, because in segment 2, what I'm going to ask is this: what actual year of the rebuild are we in? it can get confusing when you think of the dynamics. I'm going to tell you they're in year one. And I know Trent Baalke's been here for 2.5 years, and he's been in charge. Uh, he had a half a season, and then he had a full season last year, and now he's back again. I'm going to tell you why this is still their first year of the rebuild and why it's going to be treated that way. And I'll do it in just a second here on a Tuesday on Locked On Jaguars. I got to tell you guys about some very, very important things. Now, our next partner has a product I literally use every day. I started taking AG1 because I'm getting a little older. I'm pushing 53. I wanted better gut health. You guys know I had some issues with my ability to digest certain foods. I also needed oxygen, man, and I needed something. And I don't want to stand up taking 76 vitamins every day because I just don't have time to do it. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, refocus, and your recovery and aging. You know, I personally consume it because I need help in all of those areas because I'm just not as active as I used to be because of some physical limitations. So I need to be helped out in every single way I can. The healthy facts of this is it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. And it supports your better sleep quality and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. It's the one thing, the best things one of the best things that this product offers. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. Now, you guys understand too, I'm also an insomniac, so I have sleep issues. This has actually helped me with my sleep every single night, as well as my get up and go during the day. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NFL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. It's the real deal, man. Make sure y'all go check it out. All right. Here on a Tuesday, breaking it down with you the way we do, like no other. Here on Locked On Jaguars, I am Tony Wiggins, and we thank you for making us your first listen. We're talking about Trent Baalke, the decisions that have to be made, and where we are in this rebuild. A lot of this today's show is really focused on the things outside of who are you going to pick to come here and play, because I think it's a bigger picture than that. There's a year-over-year look and an overview of this draft that I've kind of hinted in the past that teams do. They'll pick a guy this year based on what they project is going to be something next year, especially when you're in the infancy of your reign as the GM or a coach. You kind of don't go in thinking about things being instant. I saw something yesterday where someone says coaches want to win and they want immediate impact. Not if you're in your first year. In your first year, you want to make sure you get it right long term. That's one of the luxuries of having the ability to come into a franchise and start at year one. And that means you don't have to make day one decisions. So guys don't have to just show up and be ready to play. You get a chance to kind of slow play it and do it the way you want it to and build it the way that you're supposed to build it. And I'm just of the ilk and to believe that coaches want the most talented players, not necessarily the guy who's the most ready to play right now. In my experience, that's the way it's always been. In my experience, that's the way it's always been. That's why you see guys like Malik Willis being mocked by about 75% of the people ahead of a guy like Kenny Pickett, because one guy's ready to play right now, but he's about as good as he's going to get in some people's eyes, and it may not be true. But another guy, he has a ceiling that is different, and quarterbacks are different than a lot of other positions, and we get that. But I do think that the coaches lean more towards a freaky athlete with a high ceiling than they do because they all ultimately all want to win a championship. They don't, the mediocrity sometimes gets you fired, right? So the difference is with this team, you have to wonder where they are in the rebuild. Technically, they're in their year 3. It's just that the first 2 picks of the first round in 2020 just weren't very good, right? So with everything that Caleb on Chason and CJ Henderson lost you and didn't give you, James Robinson kind of made up for a little bit of it, even though he's a guy who is coming off of an injury. You did get some production out of James Robinson. That's really about it, based on all of those rookies that you picked. They got Ben Barch. He's a part of the rotation, might even be a starter at left guard, depending on what they do or don't do in the draft. But for the most part, the entire draft was pretty much a waste. But Trent Baalke was the assistant GM. So you get off to a whole new fresh start last year. If this was Friday, I call this show Fresh Start Friday, because it seems like that's what the Jaguars continue to do year after year, right? And it goes back to the thing that I said a long time ago about, if you're building a house, at some point you have to get past the foundation. At some point, you want to see elevation. If every time you start building, you have to redo the foundation, then you never actually start vertically improving. And that goes the same thing with the record of the team. You never actually get better and never actually see that progression and that improvement if you're constantly reshuffling the foundation. So they reshuffled the foundation last year with Urban Meyer. And even though he's not here and his entire philosophy went out the door with him, which you can question whether he really had a philosophy at all, the one thing that is still here and is still common is like Trent Baalke and a lot of members of the scouting staff that actually chose the players that they chose last year. Now, ultimately, most people consider Urban the guy that made the decisions. But if we're going to give Trent Baalke credit for Tyson Campbell, we have to also give him, if you want to call it credit, for Andre Sisco. We have to give him credit for Walker Little, Jordan Smith, to go along with the credit that he gets for Trevor Lawrence, Tyson Campbell, and Travis Etienne, who hasn't played yet. So that's the difficult part of me of wondering where we are. Because with Trevor, you would think that it's year 2, right? With Tyson, you think that it's year 2. Obviously, with Etienne and probably Walker and Sisco, it's still year 1, and Jordan, it's year 1. So at some point, we have to negotiate or figure out how we're going to get that lined up. That it's year 2 for some guys, year 1 for others. You could even say it might be year 1 for Trevor, because a lot of things he learned last year is going to be garbage in and garbage out. And then most of the things that he learned last year, that I believe he probably got used to the speed of the game a little bit. And then the other thing that he probably did was he learned how to do press conferences, because he seems like he was doing one every day. But are they going to draft like they're in year 2? And what I mean by that is, are you going to draft as if you're depending on Walker Little? Are you going to draft as if you're understanding the development of Andre Sisco? Are you going to draft as if the injury did or didn't, based on what his recovery is, happened to Travis Etienne? What are you going to do? Is it best player available, or are we still building on what we did last year, since they didn't make a clean sweep in the organization? Had they made a clean sweep in the organization, I would think that it would be like just whatever. But now I think Trent may be believing he's building on something. The question is, do you convince Doug Peterson that that's what you're doing? Does Doug Peterson come in and buy into what is already here, and what was done a year ago? All of these things have to be answered, because if you're still building on the foundation, and Doug Peterson takes the approach that Urban Meyer took, where once you take over, they're all your guys, and we need to try to turn this around really quickly, or there's enough here that we can start at step 3. We don't have to go back to step 1. Then it's going to affect the way you draft. It's definitely going to affect the way you draft. I'd say they should look at this as year 1.5. This is year 1.5. Like, you got some guys here, they've been in the strength and conditioning program here in the National Football League, and college strength and conditioning programs are great. Don't get me wrong. It's just that you probably focus on a little bit different things here in the NFL, and you learn how to work a little bit differently and be more professional. And maybe they understand what it's like to go into training camp and the things that you're going to expect in training camp and how you need to be ready for that. Mixed in with the speed of the game that they've now gotten used to, the terminology, the workflow. So I don't think everything that those guys did last year is a waste. The key is, for me, is how are the Jaguars treating it? Are they treating it like this is year one of everything because this is year one of this coaching staff? Is it year two? Or we're just not going to put a label on it. We're going to go see where everybody is, and we're just going to go out, coach, and play football. All of those things matter. What else matters a tremendous amount, in my opinion, is the program. And I've heard Louis Riddick and other people say this. You can get all the talent all you want to, but if you don't have player development and you don't have a program and a plan in place for their growth, it doesn't matter. The Jaguars seems, I think they're probably in the bottom 5 percentile of the teams in the National Football League for growth and development. Very rarely do you see them actually make someone better from the time that they get here and then they keep them. Brad Meester is the greatest example of player development and growth, because he was pretty good when he got here. He was pretty good when he was here. He was pretty good when he retired, and he only played here his entire career. And I know that's a bit of an anomaly these days because of free agency. However, you at least need to have some guys that do just that. They come into your program and stay for longer than 3 or 4 years. Even some of the free agents the Jags went and got that did play well, Malik Jackson and Calais Campbell, they had a pit stop. They were here for 3 years and then they left. Or they were here for 2 years and then they left. AJ Bouye was here for 2 or 3, maybe 4 years, and then he left. There are no long-time players here because it seems like there's no long-term plan that has worked in the past that allowed them to cultivate the type of career path here that allowed them to stay, which creates consistency, which is something that the Jaguars do not have unless you consider being bad consistently, the consistency that they've had. How does that change? Player development has to change, having a structure. And this is where I think Doug Peterson is going to be at his absolute best. I'll tell you why I feel that way in just a second here on a Tuesday on Locked On Jaguars. First of all, BetOnline.net is your source for all your betting stats and sports info. These games are coming down to the wire in the NBA, at least the ones did Sunday. The ones last night were kind of like blowouts. But either way, they have point spreads, and you can take advantage and manipulate that at your will. But first of all, you have to find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. And I know y'all not riding around with bad parts on your car or sending your kids and your wife or whoever out on the road with questionable parts. If you are, that means you're not dealing with Rock Auto, because that's who I deal with, and that's who you should deal with too, because Rock Auto makes the most consistent parts at the most favorable prices of anywhere that you're going to get. Why go to a chain store and standing there spending your time all day answering questions that you don't know about your vehicle? But all you have to do is get on your laptop and go to rockauto.com, where you're going to save time and money. You're going to save 30, 50, even sometimes 100% for the same parts from a chain store or a dealership. It's a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Now, that doesn't mean just because you buy them, you have to put them on yourself. You can buy them and get somebody to do it. That's what I do. I'm not messing these hands up and messing my car up, because that's what I'm going to do. The prices are reliably low for every single customer. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. It's amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need are at rockauto.com. And you guys are here with me every single day here on Locked On Jaguars because it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I got to tell you about our NFL draft events that are coming up. Now, the Locked On NFL Draft Live, Locked On NFL Draft YouTube page is where it's going to be, right? So the win of this is the Locked On NFL Draft Live is obviously April 28th at 7 p.m., April 29th at 6:30, and April 30th at 11:30. That's that entire weekend. Now, the Odyssey NFL mock draft started on April 18th, which was yesterday, and it's going to go through the 22nd and then be on the 25th again. I made my pick. You guys got to check it out. I got a little special surprise for you, too, towards the end of the first round, but you got to tune in to that every single day. Make sure you check it out on the Locked On NFL draft page, as well as it's called the Ultimate Mock Draft. It's the Odyssey NFL Mock Draft, the Ultimate Mock Draft. I made the pick, and I was good, man. I kind of explained it, and you guys will see exactly some of the things that I said and the why of why I made those choices. So make sure you tune in. It's got experts from all around taking care of that. Hosted, by the way, by my man Brian Precock and Matt Williamson from the Peacock and Williamson podcast. It is absolutely outstanding. Look, player development. What's important in order for these players? We talk about who's the best on draft night, who's going to be the best as a rookie, who's going to be the best in training camp. But the unwritten thing that often determines how good of a player is or what a player's career path is going to be is the ability of the team to have a structure, a plan, constant coaching, whether it be through strength and conditioning. And really, man, it comes through winning. And my man James Coleman pointed this out. I tried to get James on today, but we weren't able to line it up. He says, I've never seen a good culture on a bad team, and I've never seen a losing team have a great culture, and I've never seen a winning team have a bad culture. And it made so much sense to me that this word that we often use, by the way, when they keep speaking of Aidan Hutchinson, they're saying he's great for the culture. But a couple of years ago, the same people, when Nick Foles kept talking about culture, wanted to run him out of here. They don't want to hear that. They want to see you go out and play, which means the culture improves when the product improves. The culture improves when the winning improves. The culture improves when the record improves. Everything improves when the play on the field is improved. This is what we've been telling Shad Khan this whole time when he talks about viability. The viability improves and the experience improves when the play and the product improves. So what do you think who's going to come in here and improve the culture without actually winning and making the team better? And I think when we do that, we put too much on one player. You say Aidan Hutchinson's good for the culture. Well, what if he comes in, he tries as hard as he can, he says all the right things, and they continue to lose? And y'all going to tell him to shut up. Y'all don't want to hear that. You want winning. In 2017, nobody cared about the personality of those players. It wasn't until 2018 when things started going sour is when now, all of a sudden, they got attitude problems. They had those same attitudes they had in 2018. They had them in 2017. The difference is nobody called them POSs. No one called them any of that stuff because they were winning. In fact, if you would have said something bad about one of those guys in 2017, the Jaguar fans would have jumped you outside of that stadium. But in 2018, it was fair game. You know why? It wasn't culture. It was winning and losing. That's it. Winning and losing. So we've taken all of these adjectives that mean absolutely nothing about a guy's career and how he's going to play, and we're putting them on these players, and everybody's running with it. What's going to make this team better is Doug Peterson. I think Doug Peterson understands winning. He's been around winning, and I think he's going to demand and command that guys get on board with how winning is supposed to be. Now, I do believe that there's a bunch of guys over there that are craving for it. I don't think they know how to get to it because most of them have never won on this level if they've been around this organization for a long time. So the key is for me that Doug Peterson has to have the biggest voice in the building. And I think this is where everyone had trepidation about him and Trent Baalke. But it appears, at least early on, that Doug Peterson is the one whose voice is being heard the most in that building. And that's going to lend itself towards the atmosphere, the development, especially when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. He has so many guys who are sort of the quarterback whisperer types. He's really insulated Trevor Lawrence to get Trevor Lawrence. And I think they're going to push him harder. I think Trevor's going to be coached harder this year than he was last year. Even though Urban and that crew was here, I just think that they were pushing him out there. Hey, man, just do what you got to do. I really think it was a situation that might have been easier for Trevor, but really worse for his career. I think they're going to coach him hard now. I don't think he's going to be the dude in the press conferences all the time. I think he's going to really be a dude that they're going to really, really challenge him from a quarterback perspective, because most of them either played quarterback or been coaching quarterbacks for a long time and have had some great ones, and they know what greatness looks like. And I think they're going to put it on him. And I think he's going to respond, because that's what I think. I think he's built that way. And I really, really do believe that it starts with him. So the player development, it starts with Trevor, and it starts with these other guys. I almost think they had a swag class over there before. Like, all you got to do is swag your way through. No, you got to work your way through. You got to work your way through to be able to have swag. And I think you'll see more focus on football stuff. You'll see more focus on technique. You'll see more focus on football IQ. You'll see more focus on all of the things that it takes to win. And then if they win, then the swag comes after that. Swag is here with me every day, because that's what you guys do. You make sure here on Locked On Jaguars that, we put out the best content. The reason why we do is because you command it and you demand it. And we absolutely appreciate you guys making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. You guys take care of each other. We'll be here tomorrow with more information. I got a little surprise for you tomorrow. I think we'll see. I don't want to pre-announce it too much, but you guys tune in tomorrow and we'll have some stuff for you about the NFL draft and maybe a surprise guest or two. But until then, you guys take care of each other and do the right thing, and we'll see you here tomorrow on Locked On Jaguars.